During the late 19th and early 20th century, sideshows were all the rage. People, most born with abnormalities, came from around the globe to perform in sideshow companies, notably Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey. While some performers entered the world of big, lighty shows through abilities such as eating fire, swallowing swords, or trapezing, the ones who went down in history shocked the world with their extraordinary bodies and health conditions. Sideshow acts welcomed all kinds of performers, and many joined as children, some given up by their parents, others used by their families as a human paycheck. We've gathered stories of 15 people from freak shows who shocked everyone with their resilience and incredible abilities. Number 15. Lionel the Lion-Faced Man, a main attraction. Christian Ramos, better known as Lionel the Lion-Faced Man, came into this filthy world in 1891 with hypertrichosis, a condition that gave him a thick, flowing coat of hair from head to toe. His mom, steeped in superstition, believed his condition was punishment, blaming it on witnessing a lion maul her husband while she was pregnant. At just 4 years old, Lionel was handed over to a showman who turned him into an exhibit. Then Lionel's career took off when he joined Barnum and Bailey in 1901. He became one of the most famous stars of his time, and of course, it was pretty tough for this man to reach this spot. Let's say he was the Oscar or Grammy holder of his time. The pain of being rejected by his family was far more painful than what God granted him. By the late 1920s, Lionel retired, returning to Germany to live a quieter life. He died in 1932, leaving behind a legacy that reminds us that what makes us different is what makes us beautiful. So we must embrace our uniqueness instead of being ashamed. Number 14. Grady Stiles, the Nightmare of Lobster Boy. Grady Stiles Jr. wasn't just a sideshow attraction. He was a walking, talking nightmare. Born into a family with ectrodactyly, a condition that fused fingers and toes into claws, he was destined for the circus life. Dubbed Lobster Boy, Grady's fame started early, but his personal life was far from charming. Behind the curtain, he was a violent alcoholic who terrorized his family. In 1978, Grady took things to a horrific level by murdering his daughter's fiancé. Despite confessing, he avoided prison because no facility could handle his condition. Instead, he got house arrest. Talk about a loophole. But karma caught up. In 1992, fed up with his abuse, Grady's wife and stepson hired a hitman to end his reign of terror. He was shot dead while watching TV in his trailer. Grady's funeral was a lonely affair, attended by just 10 people. His coffin? Adorned with a sarcastic banner from his loving wife. A fitting end, don't you think? Number 13. Myrtle Corbin, the four-legged girl who took center stage. She was the soul of my soul. Myrtle Corbin was a marvel, a true one-of-a-kind. Born in Texas with dipigus, a rare condition that gave her 2 pelvises and 4 legs, Myrtle turned what some saw as a deformity into a dazzling career. She didn't blame God for this. At just 1 month old, curious neighbors paid her dad a dime to see her, setting the stage for a life in the spotlight. By 13, she was headlining for P.T. Barnum, captivating audiences with her charm and confidence. Later, she joined Ringling Brothers and the famous Coney Island Freak Show. But Myrtle wasn't just a performer, she was a trailblazer. By 18, she'd earned enough to retire, got married, and even had 5 children. Rumor has it that her unique anatomy played a role. 3 kids from one pelvis, 2 from the other. Well, we won't get into the details of how that really works, but she was a great lady. Number 12. Hottentot Venus, the exploitation of Sarah Bartman. You are enough to drive a saint to madness or a king to his knees. Sarah Bartman was the most beautiful woman of her time, but her life tells a tale far darker than those words suggest. Born into the Khoikhoi tribe in South Africa, Sarah's world shattered when European soldiers ambushed her community during her betrothal ceremony. By 16, she was orphaned, widowed, and thrust into a life of servitude in Cape Town. But the cruelty didn't end there. In England, her curvaceous figure became the object of grotesque fascination. Heartbreak is the price you pay for love, but what people wanted from Sarah wasn't love. It was exploitation. Shipped to France, she was stripped of her dignity and exhibited nearly nude as the Hottentot Venus, a name that mocked her heritage and beauty. At just 26, Sarah's suffering ended in death, but even then her body was mutilated and displayed in a French museum for over a century. It wasn't until 2002, after Nelson Mandela's efforts, that Sarah's remains were finally laid to rest in her home country. The world and the humans who live here can be cruel, so be safe before you become a freak. Number 11. Commodore Nutt, the feisty rival in miniature. When P.T. Barnum discovered George Washington Morrison Nutt in 1862, he wasn't just another sideshow act, he was a pint-sized powerhouse with a big personality. Touring England as a midget in a struggling sideshow, Nutt caught Barnum's eye, and the showman allegedly shelled out $30,000 to bring him on board. Not only that, Barnum promised Nutt's parents he'd provide the boy with a proper education. Nutt quickly became a star in Barnum's lineup, but things got spicy when he became rivals with General Tom Thumb. The two mini-performers weren't just competitors in the spotlight, they were vying for the same woman, Lavinia Warren, a fellow circus dwarf. Sparks flew, literally. There was a physical altercation. But he ultimately chose Tom, leaving Nutt heartbroken and swearing off love for years. Despite the drama, Nutt's sharp wit and fiery spirit made him one of Barnum's most memorable stars. Love may be tricky, but as Nutt proved, if you can't have the girl, at least you can still have a great circus career. Number 10. Joyce Heth, the original P.T. Barnum hoax. Meet Joyce Heth, the woman P.T. Barnum called the greatest curiosity in the world. In 1835, Barnum bought the elderly, toothless Joyce from another showman, claiming she was 161 years old and had nursed George Washington as a baby. The truth? She was likely in her 70s. But hey, Barnum never let facts get in the way of a good story. For 7 months, Joyce endured poking, prodding, and gawking as curious visitors examined her frail frame. Some even believed she was a mechanical doll. After she died in 1836, Barnum's exploitation reached new lows. He charged 50 cents for tickets to her autopsy, where doctors revealed her real age. Joyce Heth wasn't just a spectacle, she was a grim symbol of how far showmen like Barnum would go for profit. Number 9. Joseph John Merrick, the Elephant Man's tragic grace. Joseph Merrick, better known as the Elephant Man, wasn't just a sideshow attraction. He was a man of remarkable resilience. Born with multiple conditions that caused severe deformities, Merrick's mother believed his condition stemmed from her being startled by an elephant during pregnancy. Yes, that was a thing people thought back then. Covered in growths, tumors, and protrusions, Merrick struggled to find work, eventually joining a sideshow to survive. His manager exploited him, stealing nearly all his earnings, leaving Merrick destitute. Salvation came in the form of the London hospital, where Merrick was given care, shelter, and even a bit of celebrity status. Visitors flocked to meet him, including Alexandra, Princess of Wales. Despite his hardships, Merrick displayed incredible kindness and intelligence, endearing himself to everyone he met. Number 8. Chang and Eng Bunker, the original Siamese twins. Imagine being so famous that your unique condition becomes a permanent phrase in the English language. That's the story of Chang and Eng Bunker, the conjoined twins from Siam, now Thailand, who became global celebrities. Born in 1811 and connected at the sternum by a small band of cartilage, they were discovered in 1829 by a Scottish merchant who saw dollar signs rather than boys swimming in the water. Robert Hunter paid their mother $500 to showcase them as the Siamese twins in a traveling sideshow. Chang and Eng quickly gained fame performing acrobatics and even playing badminton. Because why not? Tired of exploitation, the twins took control of their careers at 21, eventually becoming American citizens and plantation owners. Their personal lives were equally remarkable. They married sisters and fathered 21 children. But their story wasn't all applause. They faced financial ruin after the Civil War. In 1874, Chang died in his sleep, and Eng followed hours later. Number 7. George and Willie Muse, the Men from Mars. George and Willie Muse's story begins in tragedy and ends in triumph. Born black and albino in 1899 in Virginia, they were kidnapped by a freak hunter named James Herman Shelton, who saw their unusual appearance as a cash cow. Forced into the circus, they performed under names like the Men from Mars and endured humiliating treatment, all while being told their mother was dead. But Harriet Muse wasn't giving up on her sons. In 1927, she attended one of their shows, where the brothers spotted her in the crowd and immediately recognized her. Their emotional reunion made headlines, and Harriet fought tirelessly to free them. Though they returned to the circus under better contracts, they finally earned wages they could send home. George passed away in 1972, and Willie lived until 2001, outlasting both the circus and the oppressive era that had stolen their childhoods. Their story is a testament to resilience and the power of family. Number 6. Isaac W. Sprague, the Living Skeleton. Isaac W. Sprague was just like any other boy until age 12 when he began to lose weight rapidly despite his hearty appetite. By adulthood, he stood 5'6" tall, but weighed a shocking 43 pounds. Desperate for work, Sprague approached P.T. Barnum, who quipped, "Pretty lean man, where did you scare him up?" Barnum paid him $80 a week, and Isaac became known as the Living Skeleton. Despite earning decent money, life in the sideshow wasn't glamorous. Exhaustion was a constant battle, and he carried a flask of milk around his neck to stay nourished. Though he disliked being gawked at, Isaac had few other options and struggled with gambling debts. Diagnosed with progressive muscular atrophy in 1882, Isaac offered to donate his body to Harvard Medical School, joking, "They can't have it till I'm done with it." He died in poverty in 1887. Number 5. Fannie Mills, the Ohio Bigfoot Girl. Fannie Mills had the biggest feet anyone had ever seen. And no, we're not exaggerating. Born in England around 1860 and raised in Ohio, she weighed just 115 pounds, but her feet stretched an astonishing 19 inches long and 7 inches wide, thanks to a rare condition called Milroy's disease. She wore pillowcases as socks and goatskin shoes, making her a spectacle wherever she went. By 1885, Fannie decided to turn her unique condition into a career. Promoters billed her as the Ohio Bigfoot Girl, and one ad even joked that the old woman in a shoe would have rented apartments in one of hers. Crowds flocked to see her, and she earned up to $150 a week, a small fortune at the time. However, her health took a toll after a miscarriage, and she retired in 1892. Number 4. Johnny Eck, the half-boy who lived large. Johnny Eck didn't just live, he thrived. Born in 1911 with sacral agenesis, which left him with a truncated torso and underdeveloped legs, Johnny turned what others saw as a limitation into a ticket to fame. Performing with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, he became a crowd favorite, even starring in the cult classic film Freaks and playing Goonie the Bird in several Tarzan movies. Johnny was more than a performer. He was a Renaissance man. He painted, directed magic shows, and ran a train ride for children at his Baltimore home. His wit and charm made him beloved by fans and peers alike. Unlike many sideshow performers, Johnny retired comfortably, dedicating his later years to art and storytelling. He passed away in 1991, leaving behind a legacy of humor, creativity, and unshakable self-confidence. Number 3. Julia Pastrana. Beauty, beard, and heartbreak. Julia Pastrana's story is as heartbreaking as it is bizarre. Born in 1834 in a Mexican orphanage, she had a rare genetic condition that caused excessive hair growth and gum enlargement, giving her a strikingly unique appearance. While some saw her as a freak, Charles Darwin once described her as remarkably fine, albeit covered in a masculine beard. Pastrana toured the US, Europe, and Russia, dazzling audiences with her talent. She didn't just stand there, she sang arias, danced, and wore frilly dresses to emphasize the contrast between her hirsute appearance and her grace. Behind the glamour, however, Julia faced loneliness and relentless questioning about her humanity. Tragedy struck when she died in 1860, shortly after giving birth to a son who shared her condition and survived just 2 days. If that wasn't cruel enough, their embalmed bodies were exhibited posthumously. Julia's life was a blend of triumph, exploitation, and sorrow. Number 2. Jack Earl, the gentle giant. Jack Earl was a literal giant among men. Born in 1906, he stood 6 feet tall by age 10 and towered over 7 feet by 13. His height, caused by acromegalic gigantism, made him a spectacle wherever he went. But while his stature opened doors, it also brought its challenges, and even danger. Earl dabbled in Hollywood, starring in films like Jack and the Beanstalk. But a fall from scaffolding ended his acting career. Enter Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey, who saw Earl as their next star attraction. Reluctantly, he joined the circus, where he shared the stage with performers like Tutu Major Might. Despite his initial reservations, Earl found camaraderie in the sideshow, even calling the audience the real freaks. After retiring, he swapped the spotlight for a quiet life as a traveling wine salesman. Number 1. Fedor Jefticheu, Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy. Fedor Jefticheu, better known as Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy, turned a genetic condition into global fame. Born in 1868 in Russia with hypertrichosis, aka werewolf syndrome, Fedor was covered in thick hair from head to toe. P.T. Barnum, ever the opportunist, snapped him up at 16, crafting an elaborate backstory about Fedor and his father being wild savages captured in the woods. On stage, Jojo barked and growled for the audience's amusement, though in reality he was gentle, intelligent, and fluent in multiple languages. His performances were a hit, and he quickly became one of Barnum's most famous acts. Tragically, Jojo's life was cut short by pneumonia at just 35. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.